Welcome to Art Sounds Familiar. I hope despite like COVID and everything, you've been able to stay stable at least.
Yeah, no, I was definitely laid off in March when the pandemic started, and then I was lucky, blessed enough to find a new job, and then some creative endeavors really took off. So I was definitely in a time where I was very uncertain and not sure what was coming next. Definitely, COVID was a time where I made a lot of things happen. So I'm really excited about that.
That's awesome. Well, I'm glad to hear that because it definitely hasn't been like easy for like a lot of people. Like I think I'm in the same boat where I feel like I've received a lot of grace and I've been able
Hmm.
to have stability. I actually got my new job. Literally, I accepted it literally like a week or two before COVID hit. So like I didn't have to go through,
Wow.
yeah. So I'm definitely glad to hear that as well. And I hope like family and everything is also like doing well. Family,
Yeah,
friends.
family's healthy, friends are healthy. We're all just trying to do our part to end this pandemic.
Right. I just want to start by saying again, thank you for joining the platform. And I guess first I'll just like you to talk about who you are and like what you do like in the art sphere.
Yeah, so I'm Bradley Hill. I am a creative, a content creator, and a model in the city. Um, I am currently in the midst of creating my own content creating business and network.
Okay.
It's called King B Plus,
Okay.
King B Plus U. Um, where I offer my creative directing services, my styling services, my modeling services, my casting services, just the whole creative endeavor. I've had a couple projects already book me, but
Wow.
it's just a continuation of work that I've already been doing with my friends and creating content across the city,
Hmm.
uh, putting representation in content that is not normally there, and just kind of um, creating a space where everybody feels welcome to express themselves creatively.
That sounds amazing. That's an amazing endeavor. How early in your life did you like aspire to be that, to be a model, to be a creative director and content creator like slash entrepreneur? Like how early did you see yourself doing what you're doing now?
So I have always had like an affinity to like fashion and modeling. I've always been interested in like, when we were growing up, early thousands, even like the 2009 to 2015 range of just like watching the modeling shows and the fashion shows and just wanting to be a part of that. But
Hmm.
I've always been a big kid. Like I've always been plus size. I've always been big. And so I never saw myself being a part of it because I've never seen myself reflected in the industry.
Uh-huh.
It was just always something that I wanted, but I never quite knew how to get there. Um, it wasn't until I got to college and everybody goes to college and everybody's like, I'm going to reinvent myself. I'm going to be this person. I
Hmm.
went to college and I knew that I wanted to be a big deal. I just didn't know what that looked like and how I was going to do it.
Hmm.
And when you meet people who believe in you and they believe in your vision, they believe in the direction that you want to go to, you start to be like, okay, well, now I can start to obtain some things that I thought were unattainable before.
Right.
So I knew like even in college, and I went to college in a small town with a bunch of people who, their go-to fit was the bootcut jeans and the flannel.
Hmm.
So I was already like standing out as far as like the things that I thought were fashionable, the things that I wanted to wear. And when people started to, recognize me as that person, I was like, okay, so now I think this is something that I might actually have access to do. But still there was that lack of resource, that lack of
Hmm.
visibility too, and not seeing anybody else who looked like me doing it, and
Right.
not having the resources to dress the way I wanted or be a part of the things that I wanted. So when I moved back home after college, I have friends who were doing some absolutely incredible things. I have a friend who has this like blossoming hair business that's more than just like braiding in her kitchen. Like she's doing art, like
Hmm.
real art. And I have like another friend who runs like a huge collective resource center and is helping all these creatives. So I've had friends who have been doing all these things and empowered me to do my thing and to go for it.
Okay.
Um, that was a long answer to get to like to sum it all up, I never saw myself doing what I'm doing now.
Mm-hmm.
If other people didn't see it in me, I never probably would have seen it for myself.
Right. So it
So
just manifested through like just seeing that there was like that kind of space available, and even you still doing it, or you still staying true to who you were, I guess, uh despite seeing that maybe it's a possibility at all even.
yeah, no, it's not even seeing the space available, it's making the space because it wasn't available.
Right.
And being empowered to do so, and being told you can make the space. You know, you don't have to wait on somebody to make the space for you. You
Mm-hmm.
can be the person to make the space.
Okay.
So
Okay. So prior to that, had you ever like put yourself in, like, let's say, the art and modeling scene in Pittsburgh, or is it one of those things where it's like, okay, you look at the environment, it's not catering to me, so then I created my own. Then I just started doing my own stuff with friends and.
very much the latter. I the first quote unquote modeling I ever did, I
Mm-hmm.
had one of my really, really close friends in college. His name was Spencer. He was an art major, and he always was like taking pictures of his friends, and all his friends were like these skinny, cool dudes, and they were taking all these pictures. And then he was like, "Let me take your picture," and I'm like, "What do you want to take my picture for?" Like I don't look like him. I don't look like him. And he's like, "But you have your own style. You
Mm-hmm.
do it well. I'm gonna take your picture. You're cool." And that was the first time that I was like, "Can I do that?"
Right.
um, so like then going from there, I ended up curating one of the annual fashion shows, and I was like behind the scenes. I planned everything. I casted all the models, and
Mm-hmm.
then that same friend Spencer, he was one of the designers that I brought on, and he was like, "Well, I want you to be one of my models too," and I'm like, "Me?
Wow.
Like, are you sure?" And even then, I have told him this before. Like, I was squeezing the fit into his stuff too, but it was like that was the first time that I was like,
Mm-hmm.
well, somebody wants me to be a model. Somebody wants me to do this.
Right.
That and with the success of the fashion show, I was like, I have talents within the arts, and I need to start creating more space in order to do that. So I knew that when I was coming back home, that like I might not get there right away, and I
Uh-huh.
don't know how to get there, but I always knew from that point on
Right.
that like I was going to be doing what I was doing today.
Okay. So did that passion translate to like the stuff or the courses you took like in college, or like did you do something separate in college, like as your major and stuff?
I always felt like my interests and my hobbies were like a completely detached experience from my educational experience. I went to
Okay.
college to be a communications major. I actually went to college to be a political science major, and that wasn't for me. So I switched to communications because it was a broad major that I felt like I didn't know what I wanted to do, but if I had a communication degree, eventually I would figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And I graduated. I got that degree, but I don't right now when I'm looking at my life, I don't think I'm using it.
Mm-hmm.
My
Mm-hmm.
whole um, educational career was just a
Mm-hmm.
very separate like stint in my life. But my extracurricular career in college was like full of arts and
Mm-hmm.
entertainment and socializing and networking, and taught me a lot of the skills that I believe I'm using those skills now in my everyday. Even in my professional job, it's not my art career, but even in my professional job, I believe it's the success that I'm seeing is strictly attributed to the things that I've done in my extracurricular career in
Mm-hmm.
college.
Where your actual passions like lie and everything.
Correct. Yeah, where I got travel opportunities, and
Mm-hmm.
I was heads of clubs, I was winning things, awards, things like that, because I was being recognized by skills that I was creating, shaping, and being shaped, around me. I was
Mm-hmm.
building that skill set, and I was being recognized for that in my extracurricular, and that's where I feel my strengths lie.
Right. No, I agree. Like honestly, like I came from like Allegheny College, and honestly, I feel like there's just a few courses that I needed to do what I'm even doing now as like my day-to-day job. It's like honestly, I could have taken those three courses and not had as much debt as I have now. But it's like,
Yeah, if anything, and
hmm.
I didn't know you went to Allegheny because I went to Edinburgh, so we were
Oh
right up the road.
wow. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
so
Yep.
if anything, I learned survival, and like my
Right.
survival skills being in those areas. If
Mm-hmm.
above my whole educational experience, the ability to survive and to keep on pushing even
Mm-hmm.
when the odds are against you.
Yeah.
Especially being in areas like people don't know Meeville, Edinburgh,
Oh
like
man.
that whole. it is rough, and especially for Black students who go there because it's
Yep.
affordable or it's close or whatever the reason it being, and then you're up there, you're like, I got to do what it takes to survive.
Yep.
So learning that skill above all was like the number one thing that has pushed me to do what I do today.
Right. No, that and honestly, like, so right out of high school in Ghana, it's right. I took the SATs, and then that's how I came to like the U.S. for college. Prior to that, I had just been moving back and forth. And when I heard Meadville, me and my mom researched like, oh, it's a city. I'm like, okay, I'm calm because I'm from like New York. I'm like, all right, it's gonna be fine. It's a city. It's not like a town.
Mm-hmm.
And then I get here, and then like I wake up the next day, I look around, I'm like, wait, there's no Ubers, there's no nothing. I'm in the middle of nowhere. There's one movie theater. I'm like, what's going on? So it was like the biggest shock ever. But I agree with you. There's like a lot of it is like learning how to survive in that space where it's um even maybe if the school had some diversity, outside of that there is no diversity, which is like
Correct.
real life. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a great point you brought up. Talking about like your modeling experience, I know like you've organized and directed like many modeling shoots where you've explored ideas about like blackness and societal norms and mental health, some of the stuff we're talking about right now. Um, can you speak on like what sparked those ideas for you as your like as part of your starting point in this scene and the message I guess you wanted viewers or observers of art to get out of that?
For sure. So speaking on my journey, I have been absolutely blessed with friends who are like, you can do it. Like you have it. Like you can, go for it. Do this. Do the modeling. Do the styling. Do the this, that, and the other one.
Mm-hmm.
And to be surrounded by, it's not. A lot of people will be like, so you're surrounded by yes men, and it's no, that's not it. Because if anything, me and my friends are like super critical on each other to hone each other to create the best art.
Right.
But I have a lot of people who are like, if it's what you want, you can do it, and can't nobody tell you no.
Mm.
So when I started doing it and I started getting involved in the scene, a part of me was like, I have a privilege and a platform that I need to use to speak on some things that are wrong with the very industry that I want to be a part of.
Right.
I have an opportunity to make commentary on the lack of awareness of men's mental health in society in a place where men are told don't show emotion, don't cry, don't be too feminine, don't be too soft, don't be you're I have a son, not a daughter, I want a boyfriend, and all those norms.
Yeah.
But it's like that erasure, especially for men who grew up and they weren't like super, like I have never been the super masculine boy's boy.
Right.
And I grew up in an area where I was bullied because of that very reason. And I had never been able to be told that like, it's okay, you're just you.
Yes.
You decide what makes you a man.
Right.
So now when I got into a place where I could be that and I could live in that, I wanted to share that joy and that discovery, that self-discovery journey with those around me. So I wanted to create art that showed that, and that showed that like, you get to be whoever you want to be, and you get to call it whatever you want. You slap whatever label on it. It's up to you. Right. And then I also wanted to create art that showed me as a plus size male in these like, fashionable, stylish moments where like, I mean, if you look at the fashion industry right now, there are no plus size men who are like plus size men with guts, who are plus size men, who people would be like, oh, he looks sloppy. No, he's fashionable. Like you don't see those type of men. So I wanted to also contribute to that story and contribute to that vision of like, no, we can be fashion too. We can be models. We can be creatives. And through that journey, I've discovered that there are more men who think the same way. There are more people doing the work that I'm doing, and I've been able to build a network and create more art around these concepts. That's what's been pushing me is being the person that I wanted to see when I grew up. When I was growing up, I wanted to see somebody who looked like me on the screen, and I never did. Right. And if I did, they were a background character. I think about everybody loves America's Next Top Model. It was like the go-to modeling TV show that anybody who ever wanted to model or was interested in fashion, they loved.
Yes.
Back in like season 3, there was the first plus size girl.
I remember watching that.
Yeah, the first plus size girl to compete. Her name was Takara.
Mm-hmm.
I recently rewatched the whole entire series, and I'm watching the season and finding out that Takara was like not even 6 foot, but almost 6 foot. And she was like 180 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And that the way they spoke to her and the way they attacked her for being that weight, because that wasn't a model weight, and
Yeah.
the way they criticized her and ridiculed her, and how damaging and hurtful that is to plus size bodies watching that show and growing up and seeing that.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what you want to watch when you're like, I want to be a model, and I'm bigger
Right.
than Takara, So
Yeah.
I just knew that, like, after seeing stuff like that and experiencing stuff like that, I wanted to be positive representation of plus size bodies within this creative sphere, and I wanted to focus. I know I had a huge issue with my mental health, especially in college. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to speak to that and not pretend that everything was okay, because when we cap and we front for social media, people tend to think like, oh, people who do all this, they have it all together, they have it all going on, and that is
Mm-hmm.
not the case at all. So I wanted to speak to that struggle too, and just be real and honest and vulnerable. And I think that's where I've created my best art and my best work. So
Right. No, I agree with that. I remember like watching it, and even I guess even just coming from Ghana and stuff, and just knowing how like, and even just if you just look around, like everyone's body type and body shape is like different. And you would, and even the people that would consider like plus size, some of them just look like the average sized person, but they've already
mm-hmm.
categorized them like they're actually not the norm. And I guess that was part of like the nature of that industry. So I'm glad it's just stuff that you're touching on as well and bringing to light. Um, but another question I have is like, how do you actually start that process? Like, how do you get to, oh wow, okay, I literally have a set, I have a space, and I literally was able to mobilize people to do these set things for me to get this vision complete. Like, what does the first step look like, and how do you get to where you're at now with that?
As anybody who is around me can tell you, especially my close friends can tell you, it literally all starts with a conversation. I'll be like, I want to do something like this, and we'll like talk about it and talk about it and talk about it and manifest it until one day we're sitting down at a table and we're like, so how can we make this happen?
Mm-hmm.
My friends, and I'm shouting out a couple people: Mia Marshall, Janita Kilgore, Markia Hart, Danny, Kat Burton, all of
Uh-huh.
those amazing women have sat down with me at one point or another, heard an idea that I had, and like we ran with it.
Mm-hmm.
We said that we were like, these are the logistical things that need to get worked out by this date, and we will make it happen. And we just go for it. And it's an awesome thing to be surrounded by friends who are also a team when
Yeah.
I need them to be a team. So because that means they'll believe more in the vision that I'm trying to create and see it, and do
Yep.
whatever they can to make it happen. So that, for instance, if we think about my mentality show,
Mm-hmm.
um, back back in November of 2019, in October of 2019, I sat down at a table with actually with Joe Lowry, who's a photographer. I sat down with Joe and I was like, I've been thinking of creating this space to talk about men's mental health, but I've
Mm-hmm.
also wanted to do like an artistic component, like maybe like a gallery to do this space. And Joe literally looked me in the eyes and he said, "Well, what do you want to do? How do you want to do it? What what?
Mm-hmm.
How quickly can we get this done?" And I was like, can I pull something like that off?
Mm-hmm.
Kat arrived, Mia arrived, and we sat down at this table, and I'm telling them this idea, and these people are looking at me, and they're like, "So let's make it happen. What do you need us to do?" And I was very taken back. I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I don't think I'm important enough to pull something like that off. I don't think I'm big enough to pull something like that off. I don't think I know the ins and outs of the industry to pull something like that off.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, "Well, it's just as simple. Like, who do you want to be in it? Where do you want to have it? What do you want to?" And they're
Just
asking all
like
these
that.
real questions, and it's literally just planning it all out,
Yep.
asking, getting your yeses, getting your nos, and striving and doing it. And so I was, like I said, I'm blessed. I'm really blessed to be
Mm-hmm.
surrounded by these people. But what I'm learning is it is just like, if you have the dream and you want to see it come to fruition, you
Yeah.
have to plan it out and you have to actually just do it. It cannot be a conversation forever.
Right.
Um,
Right. No, that's a very like strong point you're bringing up, because a lot of the times a lot of ideas get stuck with that one person and get stuck in their head, and it's never on paper, it's never out there for like deliberation. It's almost like you're protecting the dream so much that you actually don't end up going through with it. Like,
For
maybe what if,
sure.
yeah, what if it
And
fails?
I think another like facet to that is just access and people believing if they have access to something or not,
Mm-hmm.
especially as like black kids from poor neighborhoods. Like, I'm from the hood.
Yeah.
I'm from Hazelwood. I've felt not having money. I've looked at the friends who show up in the new nice stuff and been like, well, I can't afford that, so I must not be
Yep.
important. And obviously I'm blessed now to be able to have my own, to be taken care of and provided for when I was needing to be taken care of and provided for by my amazing parents. um I've been blessed in those areas, but there was a message always sent to black kids who are in middle to low income households that you don't necessarily have access to do things like this. So
Mm-hmm.
getting out of that mindset and being like, oh wait, I can make the access, I can make it happen, and I can go for it.
Yep.
It's just another, like, it's another layer that a lot of us have had to unpack, and a lot of us are still unpacking. But it is a barrier that once overcome, you can, the world is yours and you can do what you want. And making that jump for me was definitely important. That there was a point where I was like, I cannot afford to do stuff like this.
Right.
I don't have access, I don't have resources. And we made the access, we made the resources, we made it happen.
Right.
So
No, that's cool. That's really cool. Like, cause honestly, I think the first time I saw like one of the modeling shoots, I was like, who is this person? Cause I'm like, cause first I didn't even think a lot of this stuff like existed like in the Pittsburgh like scene already. Then
yeah,
I'm seeing you do this, I'm seeing you do another thing, and I'm like, wait, something is behind this. Cause what's really going on? Like, how is this being planned out? Like, and it just takes that. It takes you actually getting out there, talking to people, um, sharing that vision and planning it out, like just actioning it, all the things out essentially.
yeah, for sure. And I want to just like put this out there,
Mm-hmm.
for anybody listening. The only reason that I have had that direct, like, I'm recognized as a creative or an artist or model in the city.
Yeah.
The very first project I ever did was Kat Burton and Joe Lowry. They put on a show called Reclaim Roles.
Okay.
Um, Kat was the first person in the city, the very first person to ever reach out to me and be like, I think you would be perfect for this shoot. We're
Mm.
doing this thing. I think you would be incredible. I've seen the stuff you've done on Instagram. Let's take it to the next level. And I was like, she reached out to me. I remember talking to my friend Mia and being like, you won't believe what happened to me today. Like, somebody wants to cast me in a shoot, like this, that, and the other. And I was like freaking out. I made my parents come to the gallery opening when it happened, and I was
Oh,
so excited. And from that relationship and that networking experience, that was like the pushing that showed me I can do this
keep
and I
going.
can keep going for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, it was an unforgettable experience. But that I needed that because then I was shown that like I can actually do this and I'm actually good at it. So
Right, right. And see, even just talking about these things, there's one thing that came to mind a lot, at least from like one of the courses that I really enjoyed back in college. It was like, I think it was a philosophy class, and it talked about W. Du Bois and like his concept of like the veil, double consciousness. And
mm-hmm.
pretty much it just talks about, I'm sure you probably already know, but where it's pretty much the state of a black person having to constantly and more permanently see themselves both as who they are and how society views them. And the difference is that the other people in society don't go through that. They can go through it like once or twice or uh, a couple times throughout their day, but it's almost again permanent for us where we always have to think from the perspective of how does that person see me when I do this. Maybe when I raise my voice as a black person, it doesn't come off the same way as another person getting upset about something. Like we start thinking on those we start thinking like that or getting programmed to think like that throughout our whole existence. And for us, it's more of a survival thing than anything.
100% is,
Yeah.
and we're still doing it today.
Right.
I literally, I'm viewing apartments right now, and I went. I was FaceTiming one of my friends, and she was like, "Why are you dressed up?" And I was like, "At the end of the day, when I leave this house, I'm a big black man.
Mm-hmm.
If I did not look presentable, if I did not put on my meek, nice to meet you voice,
Mm-hmm.
people will be scared to even give me a chance.
Right. Right.
Terrified."
Right.
I can't pull up with my music, but I have to think about that. But then I also have to remember to stay true to myself and be
Exactly.
myself and express myself in ways. And for me, that is clothing and walking. So, like you said, it's that double consciousness that Black people are constantly battling. Um, I love that. I love that you
Yeah.
brought that.
And some of your work, so when I saw some of your work with like toxic masculinity and talking about black mental health, having the photo shoots where you even did a photo shoot that I was part of where it was the
Mm-hmm.
veil. And that was the first time it made me remember that putting yourself in a space where you're allowing yourself to be like viewed upon in your natural state. So you're not in your protective, wanting to look strong or vicious or um, you can't hurt me, like breaking out of that mold and just trying to just be your natural self and showing your emotion. And when I thought of that, one of the things that it brought to mind was how maybe toxic masculinity um coincides with that veil that we always have to like consistently like put on, where like it can get toxic because we're in a society where we've been told that one simple difference we have is such a big problem when it's not. We've been vilified for it for so long that sometimes I wonder whether some of that toxic masculinity that we bring up is because now we don't even want to be different amongst ourselves anymore. We like,
Yeah,
mm-hmm,
that and I love. I'm happy you brought up the project that you were a part of, and the focus. I had that was my second mentality, and that focus was specifically on the plight of men's mental health for Black men.
mm-hmm,
Um, and you talked about the concept of the veil and the veil representing like that sheath of emotions
mm-hmm.
that we put up, like that front, so that the real us is underneath, and it's not we're not as vulnerable, but it was like the see-through veil, so you can see what we are looking like and what we're going through and how we're struggling and the emotions that we're going through.
Right.
And that was very important for me to show within my art. Um, I think it's always interesting when people look at um, Black men, and especially like with the things that like Black men are criticized for and ridiculed for, that our white male counterparts are worshipped for and
Mm-hmm.
are hired for, are casted for, are chosen for,
Yeah.
being like those strong, tough, hard exterior, very manly men. That's attractive for white men, and but strong and tough and hard exterior Black men are monsters and animals and
Uh-huh.
terrifying and are scary, are thugs, are and
Yep.
that be that double standard. Um, and so toxic masculinity affects men as a whole, but
Mm-hmm.
the way that it affects black men in that layer of like, not only can we not be too tough and we can't be too scary and we can't be too big, we also can't be too soft or else we'll
Yep.
be easy targets. We're fighting a battle outside of our community, we're fighting a battle inside of our community. We have never had that safe, you're allowed to just
Be
be.
you.
Nobody's
Yep.
ever just come out and been like, all right, we're going to stop, criticizing Black men. And this isn't me saying that like Black men have it the hardest. We all know it is Black women. Black
Yep.
women are, the most
100%.
unprotected. Yeah, we know.
Mm-hmm.
And I am surrounded by amazing Black women, and I'm so blessed. So please, anybody listening, I don't want anybody to be like, so is he saying Black men have it worse? No, I
Of course
understand the
not.
struggle. I'm
Yeah.
just talking on my experience and on the projects that I've worked on.
Right.
This is the reason why, is that I wanted to speak to giving Black men that safe space to just be, and what
Mm-hmm.
that could look like. And I've been lucky to work with Black male creatives who share that same vision. I was so lucky to have you on that project, which you were incredible. And anybody listening, please go to the Create Art Together Instagram and check out Brent's pictures and some of my other projects. But
Thank you.
Leo, Nate,
Mm-hmm.
Jameer, who's one of my past students, who is just absolutely incredible. And I look up to him because he's taught me so much about what it means to be yourself and to create that space and to be
Yep.
the best at doing that, and how people will praise you because of that.
Right.
He's so talented and he's so incredible. And so I've just been lucky to be surrounded by incredible Black men who have really pushed the barrier on what it means to be a Black man and what it looks like to be a Black man, and creating your own space and how to do that.
How has your art journey alleviated some of like the pressures you feel as a black man? And if it hasn't, what helps you stay centered? Because we're still dealing with all these issues in real life, but you're able to create a space where you dream of something greater, you dream of something better. How does it you being in that space help you um I guess stay centered or stay positive minded about everything?
I think so. I oftentimes think about other like black men who are like considered like famous creatives and
Mm-hmm.
um what they do, and do they are they super pro black, and are they like toxic men, are they like what are they like, and how do they show that in their art.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not necessarily sure that the correlation is that my art has centered me in my and being pro black and being pro mental health, and
Mm-hmm.
I think it is who I've surrounded myself with within the creative sphere and how that's reflected in my art.
Okay.
Um, I could easily, and I mean really easily, be surrounded by a bunch of white people and make art that is not authentic to me and my own experience, but
Mm-hmm.
that caters to a mainstream audience and is easily digestible, and
Yeah.
everybody will just love it, love it, love it, praise it,
Yeah.
praise it, praise it. But I am surrounded by black people, black women especially, who challenge me to be authentic and true and honest,
Mm-hmm.
um, which like challenges me to create authentic, true, and honest work.
Right.
Um,
Right. No.
and that is a lot of me struggle. Like I will be the first one to tell you, I used to struggle, and I still struggle, but not as bad. But I used to really, really, really struggle being held accountable and being challenged.
Mm.
Um, and so I think opening that door to the ability to be challenged and to be held accountable as like, are you doing what's necessary? Are you doing the work? Are you
Yeah.
doing important work? Is it true to you? Is it true to your experience, to your people, to your identity? Or is that what you're doing, or are you just putting out anything just to put out anything? I've had a
Uh-huh.
lot of conversation with friends where I'm like, well, is this gonna look, does this fit? And just being surrounded by people who are challenging me to put out authentic work
Right.
was what was necessary, and what centers me in being like super pro black, super pro men's mental health,
Mm-hmm.
um, talking about and then super accepting to even more than that. So caring about uh, all marginalized demographics and
Yep.
whatever that looks like, and trying to give visibility to everyone and use my platform to help everyone. um, it's only been because of the people who I've been surrounded by, for sure.
It reminds me of like something that me and my friends went through actually during this like during this pandemic, because we were for like I mean the first couple months we're like, okay, this pandemic has given us time. Everything is kind of shut down. We can create stuff. We can make stuff. Like we can focus on like other goals now that maybe I don't have to I'm lucky enough maybe to not have to walk into work every day, X, Y, and Z. And for a while, it was like we would say stuff, but at the end of the week, we'll like talk to each other like, what happened? Nothing, nothing. And then we actually started creating a list of goals and tracking each other and holding each other accountable, just like what you're saying. Like, oh, did you do this? Did you do that? Like mine, for instance, I love sweets. I love just eating whatever. And I would work out, but I'd work out and not and do no cardio, zero. And one of the things was like, okay, no, I have to work on my cardio. I have to work on my cardio. And then I started running. Like a 10-minute run for me was like hell. Like I was like, hell no, I can't. And I just had to keep pushing, keep pushing, keep pushing. And I had friends that were able to keep me accountable. Like, did you do this? Did you do this? Did you do that? And it was amazing the change that happened. Like up to now, I still run like 5 days a week. And I think it's very important to have friends that are not just friends, but people that will hold you accountable and care about you to the point where they care about what you're investing yourself in and the dreams that you want to achieve as well. So that's a very
100%.
strong thing that you bring up. What are some of the pointers? And I guess like I just mentioned one, but what are some of the pointers you would have for someone that wants to also be a creator and create like these like social events that really touch on important topics that we're going through, I guess, as either as a Black community or as another marginalized group? Like, what are some of the pointers you have for them? I think we've touched on a lot, but I'd like you to have the floor and then address that.
I think the first one and the most important one, and this is like a lesson that I had to tell myself, a lesson that I'm still telling myself, and a lesson that I will always tell myself, is that you cannot compare yourself to anybody else.
Mm.
And I know that's like something like they tell you back in high school when you're like, oh, like she's prettier than me. And you're like, no, like don't compare yourself to other people. But like my biggest struggle from like not being a creative to now being a creative was that I was seeing other creatives in the city and I was like, I don't look like them. I don't
Mm-hmm.
have the access that they have. I don't have the resources that they have. I don't have what they have. I don't live where they live. I don't,
Yeah.
I was comparing. Even now, my creative journey does not look anything like anybody else in the city, but I
Mm-hmm.
never would have done it if I had kept comparing myself to those around me or those who I'm seeing on Instagram who were considered popular creators. I actually vividly see conversations that I've had with my friends who three of my friends that I mentioned, like
Mm-hmm.
Kia, Janita, and Mia, they're part of this podcast called GRS, Girls Running Shit.
Okay.
And I was like, I remember like telling them like, oh, like I want to do what you guys do. They're getting invited to all these places. People are like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, we love GRS, this, that, and the other one. And I used to be like, well, I don't have, I don't have my GRS. I don't have, I'm not being recognized. I'm a background character. I'll never be important. I'll never be a creative. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember like I can hear Mia being like, if it's like you want to do, you need to do it. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
what? Like I never really thought about it like that. I had just always thought that I had to be a certain person or I had to be like somebody else to make it.
Yeah.
But staying true and being authentic to me, I created my own journey. So you cannot compare yourself to other people or you will stay right where you are because that will be you trying to get what they have, not trying to get something for yourself.
Right.
So that's like right off bat, do not compare yourself to other people. And the only other tip that I have is that you might not think you have the resources or you have the access.
Mm-hmm.
Just go for it. Do it with what you got, and you will realize you have more to offer than you think.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing has pushed me harder than being in a tight spot and thinking, I don't have what I need. I don't have this. I don't have that. And making it happen. And then being
Mm-hmm.
on the other side and being like, did we or did we not make it happen?
Right. Right.
Like,
Right.
but like when you're, and I know it's scary when you're like approaching a project or you're approaching, an event, and you're like, I don't know if I have everything that I need.
Right.
One way or another, it's gonna get done because if you're, if you're who you say you are, you're authentic to yourself, you'll make it happen. If it's what you really want, it's true to your heart, it's true to your purpose, it's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I did say that was the one and only other thing, but in addition to that,
Yeah.
never be so tied down to something because there are a lot of things that I set out to make it look one way, and on the other side, it did not look like how I originally planned it.
Right.
But that ability to adapt and change to your circumstances or your resources is necessary.
Yeah.
To still you can still be true to yourself even when the finished product doesn't look how you intended from the beginning.
Right.
And that ability to adapt and change is also very necessary if you want to be a creative.
Right. I remember I saw an Instagram post that like one of my friends shared, and the person in it was talking about how people get so stuck because they're not,
Mm-hmm.
because their vision and what they want the final product to look like is literally hindering them from doing the first initial steps. It's like someone's here thinking, oh, I have this concept, or I have this product I want to create for people to buy, and I think it's going to be amazing, and they're so like, oh, I want to make sure maybe I can get 10,000 sales, and then they're not, and then it's like, wait, just make the first one, like literally
Yeah.
make your first sale. And so I think all the points that you're mentioning right now, like, are definitely great points. And it's interesting because every one of them that you're touching are things that I'm going through right now in my art journey. And when you hear other creators talk about the stuff that they're doing, is those same things that I guess um, our human nature always like prevents us from like breaking out of, or we're just so
Mm-hmm.
used to being in that safety net and that safety mold that is just becomes a scary thing to just really put even ourselves out there, like who we actually are.
We're definitely conditioned to think like that.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the most important things that I was ever told was that, if you're scared to do something, do it scared.
Yeah.
Like that fear is not going to go away.
Right.
It's not. And that's the reality, is that we are always going to be nervous about what's on the other side until we're on the other side.
Right.
And that, especially during the pandemic and a time of uncertainty, has been like my motto, is that I've been like scared to do some stuff, but I did it, and it was worth it. On the other side, I'm like, whoa, like that's crazy. I've had, during this pandemic, I've had a lot of firsts. I have purchased some, I've made some moves where I'm like, I don't know what this is gonna do, and I don't know how this is gonna look, but
Yeah.
I might be on the street next week, but I'm gonna go for it. And then I go for it, and I'm like, oh, that
wasn't too bad, right?
I did it, and I didn't stop being scared when I did it, but I did it because I had faith in like it was going to be good for me.
Mm-hmm.
It was necessary for my growth. It was necessary for change.
Right.
And that's another thing. I will say this, and then I will stop being so long-winded.
No, we love it. We love
it. If your goal is to continue to be better than you were yesterday, right? And a lot of people always say like, my only competition is the person who I was yesterday and the person who I want to be tomorrow, or however the little phrase goes.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be open and willing to change.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people are open and willing to change, but up to a certain point, and that's when they peak.
Mm-hmm.
And I firmly believe that my ability to adapt, change, and grow and have, the necessary criticism, the necessary work, I will do it, and I will change, and I will grow, and I will continue to evolve. There are no ceilings there. If you're able to adapt and change, especially with the times, and that's like the number one challenge, is that a lot of people, and especially a lot of adults who are older than us, I don't know what it is. It's like the 40s curse, when like they start saying that stuff is for the kids and it's not for them. Yeah. No, keep adapting, keep it changing. You have to keep changing and adapting, or else you will peak, and that will be when you stop feeling a part of society. That will be when you stop feeling your dreams, when you stop wanting to do more. Is the sooner as soon as you say no to change, that is the moment where like that's where it stops for you.
Right.
So if you want to keep growing and you want to keep moving, you want to keep doing the thing and being a part of the big stuff, you have to be willing to change and adapt, and especially with the times. Some of the best teachers in this world are kids, because they are constantly creating new things that adults are catching on to and profiting off of. Right. TikTok is only a big thing because the kids got a hold of it and made it this big thing.
The stuff you're doing is amazing.
We can fight it. We can be like, no, forget TikTok. I miss the Vine days. Or you can be like, y'all better go ahead and y'all better teach me to dance. Show me because you're learning and you're growing, and the kids are probably going to teach you a lot of those lessons.
Yep.
A lot of adults, they have that pride where they're like, ain't no kid got nothing to teach me. No, kids have everything to teach you, because they're creating the pop culture. They're creating the movements as we go along. It's always been the youth, and it'll always start with the youth.
Right. Like I think about hip hop, same thing.
Another thing.
Yeah. Like I think about like hip hop, and like how there was a time where there was that, no, it should be like this. And you like this is what 100%. You should focus on as a rapper. And you realize that no, like there's so many new things that the youth was creating that's actually difficult to still do. Like having melodies and singing while rapping and making all 100%. That sound amazing. It's like there's some work in there, and it's revolutionizing like everything. You have
people talk about like your legends, like your Tupacs, your Aaliyahs, who died young. They died young. They were kids who are highly regarded as some of the most influential people in music. They were young. They were in their teen years. They were in their early 20s.
Yeah,
they were young,
still figuring life out.
Kids always have their finger on the pulse. They always know what's coming because they're creating it.
Right,
they're doing it. So that's another tip. Trust the kids. Listen to the kids.
Right. So back in like November 2019, you helmed like your big project Mentality. Aside from that, even last year you did like that art fashion show. I'm forgetting the names. It was
the
House of Luxury. And you've worked on so many other like modeling projects and shoots. At this point, what is the most rewarding part of those experiences? Like after you've gone through the process of setting these things up, mobilizing other people to work with you, seeing your vision to fruition, what after all that happens and people get to see it, what is the most rewarding part of that experience for you?
I think I think it's a validation.
Mm,
Um, like I spoke earlier on, I've always been a plus size body.
mm-hmm.
I've always been outside of the conversation, never in the conversation.
Right.
Um, I come from, when I was in school, I was never the popular kid. When I was in like high school and middle school, I was bullied. I was never a part of the mainstream. I was never part of the hip scene. I was never part of the the creators endeavors. I was never me.
Mm-hmm.
So even after the first mentality, the validation that I received from people being like, no, that was actually important. No, the art you created was actually amazing. The stuff
Mm-hmm.
you did was meaningful and had purpose. And I was like, I didn't become a part of a conversation. I created my own conversation, and people recognized that and they validated me in that. And that got tears in my eyes. At the first mentality, I went home and I cried because I was like, I did it.
Mm-hmm.
I did exactly what I set out to do, and
Right.
people actually liked it, and it
Right.
actually touched people. It actually, you know, reached people, and it was meaningful. That validation was very important for me to keep going.
Right.
After every single show, I sit down with my friends. We talk about what we love and
Mm-hmm.
what could have been better.
Mm-hmm.
But after every event that we've done, every project we've done, my friends and I have sat down and we've been like, no, we did that. We
Right.
did that. We did that, and people actually enjoyed it. People actually liked it. We are being validated in our purpose and our endeavors. And there's not one project that I've done that I've left and I'm like, why did I do that? I should never
Mm-hmm.
have done that. I'm not. Who am I? I was never. No, I've been validated, and that it's not like I need praise. I don't need high praise. I don't need accolades and awards, but that validation of it being meaningful and important,
Right.
that's what is the substance. That's what I've loved and what's kept me going for sure.
Right. No, I can agree to that. Like even just now that I just started like doing this like art sounds familiar like show and just trying to get like young creatives just really just making like paving their own way in like the art world, especially like black creatives up. It's like um one of the things that has been even satisfying doing this is I heard like literally I released the first one and I got like feedback from one person at that particular moment, and that one person was so excited about it that every all the anxiety I had prior to releasing it just went away. It was like all I did want was for one person, so at least someone to just listen to this and get
Just,
something from it, and it maybe change their perspective or just be of some type of interest. So I can fully 100% like agree with that as well.
and I love that, and I love black creatives doing whatever they want. And
Mm-hmm.
my best friend, she always says like, you might look and you might not see a space for you, or you might see somebody doing exactly what you want to do. There's
Mm-hmm.
literally space for everyone. Like there
Mm-hmm.
is room for everyone. um, where you might not see space, you make your own space. There is room for everyone to do what they want to do, and it will still affect somebody. It will still have impact. It will still be important.
Right.
So I love that this is what you're doing for sure.
So we've been talking about like experiences, just like the mentality thing. On a lighter note, I've seen that you've done other things like you attended a silent disco, and I was like, wait, what is that? And I was like, okay, like what is a silent disco? How do you
Yeah,
jam?
yeah. I do a lot of fun. I would like to say that me and my friends try and this is definitely pre-pandemic, because
Hmm.
during the pandemic it has definitely been tough.
Right.
That's not true, because even during the pandemic, like we went to a my friend Danny. She is known as Inez. She is a
Mm.
artist. I can't even just call her a singer. She is a full-fledged artist and performer.
Mm.
Very amazing. She just was awarded WYP's Artist of the Year, so I get to
Wow.
brag about my friend.
Yep.
She had a drive-in show,
Mm.
um, which I didn't. I was like, what is a drive-in show?
Uh-huh.
But the organization, I believe, it was the Cultural Trust. They built a drive-in theater right in Hazelwood. They
Wow.
built a drive-in theater and had all the cars marked out so they were social distance. You were only parked if you were with anything. Like me and my friends, we took 2 cars so we could
Uh-huh.
section off a space and
Mm-hmm.
be in that space. And we were able to sit outside of our cars and our chairs, have food, do this thing, and watch this drive-in performance. And we were, tune your radio so you can hear it, or you can sit outside your car and you can hear it that way too.
Okay.
It was just such a unique creative experience that I absolutely loved. It definitely like reignited my fire to get back out there and do stuff and just find a way to
Mm-hmm.
work around the pandemic.
Right.
The silent discos are put on by, I think those are also put on by the Cultural Trust. And they happen during their annual art call that usually happens in January. So this will be the first January in 4 years, because we've gone 3 years. So this would have been the 4th year that we are not going to the annual silent disco that happens.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
And I love silent discos. I think they're super cool. For anybody who doesn't know how they're set up, 3 DJs are plugged into 3 different stations. You get these headphones that can tune you into one of the 3 DJ sets and listen to what they're playing. I've had incredible friends who have been DJs. Ari Cole is one of the ones who last year it was just popping. Like it was so much fun. We had so much fun. We try to just get out into the scene and whatever it looks like at the museums and the at Social Status. Shout out to the Social Status fam. They put on amazing events. We just try to get out there and be as present as possible and experience as much as possible. We're only young once, so
Right.
we want to live, but we don't want it. We don't want it to be normal. I don't. When I'm looking back on my life, I don't want to be like I spent all my time in the club.
Right. Right.
I would love to be in the club right now, but
Right.
I also have like so many stories to tell of so many
Mm.
unique different experiences. I think about like the beer fest that happened that was like for Black beer creators, Black brewers.
Wow. I haven't heard
And I
about
was
that. That's
like
cool.
that's such a unique experience that I never would have had if I didn't like get out there and try new things and experience new things.
Yeah.
And have friends that push me to get out there and try new things and experience new things.
Yeah.
So,
What ways do you feel like you've grown as a person, like throughout your art? I know definitely one is the ability to change and be held like accountable. Are those, I guess, like the two major ways? And what are the other ways you feel like art has allowed you to grow?
I think the biggest way is to trust and believe in myself.
Mm.
I've always struggled with like what is the word? Self-confidence.
Mm.
I've always struggled with self-confidence. I've always second-guessed myself. I'm and it's so weird to talk about it now because I try not to be that person and I'm conscious of it, but I can remember being in rooms and beating people to the punch. I will make fun of myself first before anybody in the room gets to make fun of me because I was so used to it that I was beating myself down and I was doubting myself and I was doing it for people who, looking back on it, wasn't going to do it, but I was doing it for them.
Right. It's like a safety thing.
It is. It's a safety. It's a default. So that I'm just comfortable in disappointment. I'm comfortable in negativity, so it doesn't affect me more, and I can just keep going.
Right.
So with my art and creating art, I've just been more solidified in being me and believing in that and trusting that process and trusting who I am, trusting my gut, trusting my beliefs, listening to myself first and being able to even interpret that and share that and whatever that looks like,
Right.
I am still open to criticism. I do still respond to negativity, but I am there's a more solid foundation in who I am and trusting that and a lot of self-discovery and a lot of, like taking on new identities and understanding who I am and what that looks like.
Yeah.
But through my art, I've just been more trusting in myself and my heart and my desires and what I really want and validating that, not being like, oh, you want this, but is that practical? It doesn't matter if it's practical. If it's what you
Mm,
want, go get it.
right.
So yeah, that's like the number one thing that my art has done for me.
Right. No, that's wonderful. That's definitely and I definitely hope that like people like even listening to this definitely take that in because it is very important to like really believe in yourself. It's like who will, you
Mm,
know? So
right.
if you don't start, like I've seen people talking about like, oh, I got put on. Like how do you call it? I put myself on, and before I put myself on, like nobody was really supporting me, and it's like that is pretty much how it works because people feed off of you who you are and what
Mhm.
you're trying to achieve. Like they wait to it's weird because there is that like wow you really waited for me until like I was really on the trajectory and it's like it feels bad because like it's like yeah like, why couldn't you believe in me before I got to this stage, but it is also that is kind of how it happens. They buy in when you have really put yourself into it. You are that passionate because when you are passionate you do start succeeding. It's like it really is a weird dynamic
Well, I'm honestly blessed that that is not my testimony, and I've had friends who believed in me when I
from the jump.
definitely did not believe in myself. My closest friends are the people who were standing next to me when I was dressed as the school mascot because I felt more comfortable in a mascot suit than I did as myself. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
I had
Mm-hmm.
those same friends who were there for me when I was, balling in my dorm room
Yeah.
over dumb stuff. Like I
Mm-hmm.
have those friends still who were supporting me then and they're right there with me now. And whatever success looks like for me now, those are the same people who are around me.
Right.
So I'm blessed and I know that's not everybody's journey. I know that's not everybody's testimony. But if
Right.
you're lucky enough to be surrounded by somebody who supports you when you don't think you're doing well,
Gotta go.
please keep those people around you because those are the people who are 100% necessary to your success.
Right. 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 No, that's a powerful point. Um, so even looking forward, what are some of your future like endeavors, like or future undertakings? And if anyone is looking forward to like your next project that's gonna come out, and what would it be, and where could they like easily find you?
So right now, I am easily accessible through my Instagram account
Mm-hmm.
at b_rad_hill. Um, that's a if anybody has ever seen Malibu's Most Wanted, that is the reason why my Instagram account is the way it is. But you can reach me through there, and you can see some of my projects through there also.
Okay.
I am currently in the process of developing my website, and that will be available hopefully by the end of the month, if not in the beginning of February.
Okay.
Um, my next projects are all top secret, as they always are. But I can give you guys a timeline. Look out. I have some really great projects in the work for the month of February
Okay.
that I think are going to push myself, the people who I'm working with. It's going to push us further than we've gone. So I'm really excited to premiere some new stuff, to do some new stuff,
Mm-hmm.
some stuff that I actually have never done before,
Yeah.
and to work with some people, to be given a platform to work with some people in new and interesting and fun ways. So I think January was already a decently big month for me.
Okay.
And I've worked with some cool people this month who and those projects will be coming out. But February, I just think is going to be a really big month for me
Oh,
for sure.
okay. So you did stuff in January that hasn't come out yet, but will come out
Yeah,
in the
yeah, yeah,
following.
yeah. And
Okay.
I was commissioned to do some creative directing work for a couple people
Wow.
um, that I was honored to work with, and I can't wait for that stuff to come out. But
Mm-hmm.
February, I took some chances, and so I'm
Some
just really
liberties.
excited
Yeah.
to share some stuff.
No, we're looking forward to it. I'm definitely looking. I did not know that there were black people doing art in the scene to this magnitude, and
Yeah,
so yeah, I definitely
and
would love.
I was right there with you, so I'm
Right.
happy that I could share that with you.
Right. No, thank you, and thank you so much again for being on this platform, for being a voice. Definitely love like the conversation, and I hope the audience will as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.